Hey guys, so there's a lot of talk recently about the Joy-Con syncing issue, where it desyncs and then it syncs and it'll lose touch with it. So if you're moving around and you put your hands over it, all of a sudden it'll stop working on screen and then it'll jump back to working. Put it behind your back, same thing. And there's really not been much talk about what could be actually causing this. I saw one video from Blunty, which was well done. He makes mention that yes, when you cover something that's Bluetooth, you can actually affect it with your hands because we are mostly made of water. Of course, water does affect radio waves, but that shouldn't be the entire story, because if that was the case, if I took my PS4 controller and covered it and bear hugged it and did all this stuff, put it behind my back even, because remember, he put it behind his back, it did the same thing, I would affect its range because it's also Bluetooth. It's rated very similar to how the Joy-Cons are. And no, my PS4 controller works fine at all times pretty much. And if that was the case, again, it wouldn't work. But because this is rated at least what I would assume to be a very close to a Class 2 Bluetooth device, it's good up to 20 decibel milliwatts, which is great, except here's the interesting thing. The PS4 controller, from what I can find on their dev wikis and everything, runs roughly 4-ish decibel milliwatts, which is very similar to what the Joy-Cons run, which is right at 4 decibel milliwatts. Now, decibel milliwatt is just it's a unit of power for how strong a signal is, basically, right? Without getting too into it. So you don't have to worry too much about that. Just know that 4 decibel milliwatts should be plenty. And that's kind of where it gets interesting, because if the Joy-Cons are rated at 4, which FCC filings state that it's rated pretty much right at 4, actually, maybe a little less, maybe like 3.8, 3.9, that should be plenty for, even if you cover it, if you put it behind your back. That's the weirdest thing, by the way. When he put it behind his back, that kind of lost me a little bit, because it's still not being covered completely. Your body's in the way, yes, but that still shouldn't affect it. Again, my PS4 controller behind my back across the room does not do that. So there's something else going on here. It's not just us covering it that's affecting these Joy-Cons. So what I'm going to tell you right now, guys, is this is my opinion. These are my thoughts on what could be going on. I could be completely wrong. You could have a different opinion, and that's fine too. But what I believe is happening here with these Joy-Cons is I think they are stuck in what is basically a low power state. So when they're attached to the side of the main unit or the tablet unit, it clicks in, and I think it then drops to a lower power state, because we don't even think the Bluetooth is even really being used. A lot of people assume that when you slide them on and it locks in, that it's using like a wired connection. That's not necessarily true, though. We're still trying to figure that one out, because keep in mind, sometimes controllers, when they're just plugged in, they don't actually sync up. I remember the Xbox 360 controller was notorious for that, because you could plug the Play and Charge kit into your computer, but it would not necessarily become wired. It would just charge the controller. So just because you could plug it in doesn't necessarily mean it becomes wired. In this case, though, it's very possible that it does become wired, and then the Bluetooth chip enters like a low-powered state. And what I think is happening is the power that's being given out from there is very low. So when you then remove it, you are then basically binded to this low-power state, and you're given 4, maybe 5 feet of accurate, and I mean that again, accurate connection, whereas if you start leaving that distance, it becomes very sporadic, or if you cover it, becomes sporadic, put it behind your back, so on. And I don't think this is something that will plague the Switch for its lifetime. In fact, rumors apparently are going around that this will be fixed before launch. And if it's going to be fixed before launch, that's definitely a software issue. That means they're probably putting out some kind of firmware or software update. The worst case scenario I can see is if they have to recall Joy-Cons, or if this was a bad batch of Joy-Cons, because all of these Joy-Cons went to reviewers who are going to mention that in their review. And it's also interesting to note that the only people who have complained about this, and again, maybe they have not even published this, or maybe they're still going over it, the people in like the United Kingdom or UK or Europe haven't really talked about this issue. It seems to be just people in the United States, which is also very weird. But again, a lot of people also talk about how we did not have this issue when you were at any of the events. I didn't, and there were people up on stage with Mario Kart, for example, that were probably a good 10 to 15 feet away from the actual Switch, playing Mario Kart with one of the Joy-Cons sideways. And it's interesting because I know, just based on what I did with that system, trying to do everything I could to back out of the game, going into the menus, I don't think it actually had the same operating system that we have now. And I think there's a good chance that there is just a bug in the operating system that is keeping the Joy-Cons from, when they detach, to then jump to a higher power output for its Bluetooth device. The other thing that I think is telling, and it kind of backs this claim, is the Pro Controller does not have this issue at all. And I think the Pro Controller is just affected in a different way with the system as opposed to the Joy-Cons. I do think that Nintendo will put out some sort of patch to fix this. I don't think it's on a hardware level. I would hope not, because that would be a big blow to the launch of the Switch. People would still buy it. I just think it's very odd that a 4 decibel milliwatt device cannot penetrate our hands or our body to go to the system, because that's not normal at all for that amount of power. So yeah, guys, I think it's just a software bug. I think we will have a patch before launch or at launch. Now, if they just now looking into it, because the word is that they're now looking into it, trying to figure it out, if they can beat the launch, that's great. I think it'll be good for a lot of people. I won't be using the Joy-Cons as much because I have that Pro Controller. I'm pretty much going to play Zelda exclusively with the Pro Controller, but we can't pretend like it's not an issue. It is an issue. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are not getting a Pro Controller, who are just going to use Joy-Cons, and that does become an issue considering the Joy-Cons are pretty expensive devices. They're not cheap. They're $50 a piece or $80 for 2. And for 2017, that should not be an issue in terms of Bluetooth technology where we are now. That's why I do think software bug, update will fix it, and we'll go from there. But again, we'll know more day one when I get mine, because I will pretty much bury this thing to see if it still does it. So you can look for that as well. I also want to open it up and see what is going on in there in terms of Bluetooth connectivity, because usually the Bluetooth chip is integrated onto a board. It's the same with the PS4 controller, and it's just integrated. There's no big antenna in there that's helping it. So I want to open it up and see what's going on there as well. But yeah, guys, that's it for now. Just keep in mind the Joy-Cons probably will be updated. I hope that they're updatable. I do think it's on a system level, though. I think there's just a bug keeping those Joy-Cons from entering a higher power state when they leave the system, because of course the system knows when it's on and when it goes off. So more than likely there's just something there. So that's it for now, guys. I will see you next time.